The city of Bellwood was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, the kind that precedes something catastrophic. This wasn't the peaceful quiet of a normal evening. This was the eerie silence before a storm. And Ben Tennyson, wielder of the most powerful device in the universe, the Omnitrix, could feel it in his bones. Standing on the rooftop of an abandoned warehouse, Ben scanned the streets below with narrowed eyes. At 17 years old, he'd been fighting aliens for nearly 7 years now, and his instincts had become razor sharp. Something was coming. He could feel it. The air felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. His Omnitrix, the watch-like device permanently affixed to his wrist, seemed to pulse with an unusual energy. Gwen's voice suddenly crackled through his earpiece, breaking the silence. "Ben, are you seeing this?" Her tone carried that mixture of scientific curiosity and alarm that he'd come to recognize over years of fighting alongside his cousin. Ben turned in the direction she was presumably looking from her position 3 blocks away. In the distance, a strange ripple in the air shimmered like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. It started small, almost imperceptible, but grew rapidly. Then, without warning, a portal tore open in the fabric of reality. The edges glowed with an unnatural blue light, crackling with energy that made Ben's skin crawl. From within this dimensional tear, a massive insect-like creature crawled out, its metallic body reflecting the streetlights in an unsettling kaleidoscope of colors. 6 segmented legs supported a bulbous thorax, and what appeared to be weapon systems were integrated into its exoskeleton. Its head swiveled unnaturally, scanning the environment with glowing red optical sensors. An Incursean War Drone here? Ben's eyes widened in disbelief. The Incurseans were a warlike race of frog-like aliens from a distant sector of the galaxy. They had no business being on Earth, especially not with military hardware this advanced. No way this is random! The drone's red eyes locked onto Ben's position, the targeting systems clearly identifying him as a threat. It emitted a high-pitched, electronic shriek that echoed through the empty streets, then lunged forward with surprising speed, leaping from the ground directly toward the rooftop where Ben stood. In that split second, Ben's years of experience kicked in. His hand moved to the Omnitrix with practiced precision, cycling through the holographic display of alien forms before selecting one. "Let's see how you like 4 arms," he shouted, slamming his palm down on the device. Green energy exploded around him, engulfing his human form and transforming his body in an instant. Where Ben Tennyson once stood, now towered the 12-foot-tall, 4-armed Tetraman warrior. Red skin, 4 yellow eyes, and muscles upon muscles. 4 arms was the embodiment of raw physical power. With a mighty roar that shook the very building beneath him, 4 arms caught the drone mid-air, his upper arms gripping its front appendages while his lower arms seized its thorax. The momentum carried them both off the rooftop, but 4 arms twisted in the air, positioning the drone beneath him as they fell. They slammed into the street with tremendous force, the pavement cracking beneath them in a spiderweb pattern. The drone's exoskeleton buckled under the impact, but it wasn't destroyed. These machines were built for war after all. "Ben!" a familiar voice called out. Gwen and Kevin pulled up in the Rust Bucket, the modified RV that had become their mobile headquarters. The vehicle screeched to a halt as Gwen leaped out, her hands already glowing with mana energy, the magical force she'd mastered over the years. "Ben, careful!" Gwen shouted, her red hair whipping in the wind as she assessed the situation. Her eyes, normally green like Ben's, now glowed with the pink energy of her anodite heritage. "That's not just any drone, it's broadcasting a signal." Kevin Levin, Ben's former enemy turned best friend emerged from the driver's side with his characteristic smirk. Tall, dark-haired, and with the ability to absorb and manipulate materials, Kevin had become an invaluable part of the team. He cracked his knuckles, clearly eager for action. "Yeah, leave some for me." He touched the van's metal bumper, his skin immediately taking on the properties of the material, transforming his entire body into living metal. The drone twisted beneath 4Arm's grip, its damaged systems recalibrating. Suddenly, panels along its sides opened up, revealing hidden weapon ports. Before Ben could react, the drone launched a volley of plasma shots in all directions. 4Arms leapt back just in time, releasing the drone to avoid the worst of the blast. The street erupted in flames where the energy bolt struck, sending chunks of asphalt flying through the air. "I got this!" Kevin sprinted forward, his metal form gleaming in the firelight. With incredible strength, he delivered a devastating punch straight through the drone's already damaged armor. Sparks flew as his fist penetrated vital systems, and the drone screeched an electronic death cry. But then, more spatial anomalies began appearing in the sky above them. 1, 2, 3. Soon a dozen portals began opening across the Bellwood skyline. "Oh, come on!" Ben groaned, watching as more drones began emerging from each portal. A whole army? What are the Incursions planning? Gwen raised her hands, summoning glowing pink shields of mana energy as more drones poured through the portals. The magical barriers intercepted plasma bolts that would have struck them, dissipating the energy harmlessly. "We need a plan!" she called out, strain evident in her voice as she maintained multiple shields simultaneously. 4Arms looked at the growing number of enemies, then at the Omnitrix symbol on his shoulder. These drones were tough, but not particularly agile. What he needed was a form that could hit multiple targets at once, something fluid and adaptable. Ben grinned, slamming the Omnitrix symbol again. "Got one? Goop time!" Another flash of green light, and 4Arms' massive body morphed into the amorphous, gelatinous form of Goop, a green, semi-transparent alien controlled by a small, anti-gravity projector that hovered above the slime. This form had no fixed shape, allowing Ben to stretch, compress, and reshape his body at will. He stretched high above the battlefield, his body elongating like a tower of slime before spreading out like a canopy. From this position, he began raining acidic slime onto the incoming drones. The corrosive substance sizzled as it made contact with their metal exoskeletons, eating through critical components and short-circuiting their systems. "Nice!" Kevin laughed, tearing another drone apart with his metal hands. He was in his element, the former juvenile delinquent now channeling his aggressive tendencies toward protecting Earth. "But there's too many of them! Where are they all coming from?" Gwen, maintaining her shields while simultaneously analyzing the energy signatures of the portals, called out, "These aren't random incursions! The portals are being generated from a single source! Something big is coming through!" As if on cue, the ground beneath them rumbled ominously. The smaller portals began to close as the drones already through continued their attack, but in the center of the street, a new portal began to form, larger than any they'd seen before. The air distorted, reality itself seeming to bend and warp as the spatial tear expanded to massive proportions. A shadow loomed over them, darkening the street despite the fires burning from the drone attacks. From the largest portal, a towering figure stepped through, a figure all too familiar to Ben and his team. Green skin stretched over powerful muscles, a squid-like face with tentacles hanging like a beard, red eyes that burned with hatred and the promise of vengeance. Armor that had been upgraded with technology from a dozen conquered worlds, and on his right arm, a gauntlet that pulsed with power that rivaled the Omnitrix itself. Vilgax, the conqueror of 10 worlds, Ben's oldest and most dangerous enemy. Ben's gelatinous form rippled with shock, his anti-gravity projector dipping slightly as his concentration wavered. "Oh! You've got to be kidding me!" Vilgax surveyed the battlefield with cold calculation, his tentacles twitching slightly, the only indication of his anticipation. "Benjamin Tennyson," his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "How predictable that you would respond to my little distraction." Goop quickly reformed into a more humanoid shape, the Omnitrix symbol prominently displayed on his chest. "Vilgax, I should have known you'd be behind this. What's the matter? Got tired of me kicking your butt across the galaxy?" The alien warlord's eyes narrowed. "Your juvenile taunts are as ineffective as ever. But today, Tennyson, I come not merely for the Omnitrix, but for something far more valuable." Kevin, who had absorbed a piece of the fallen drone to upgrade his metal form with the alien technology, moved to stand beside Goop. "Yeah? And what's that?" "Knowledge," Vilgax replied simply, raising his gauntleted arm. "The knowledge contained within Azimuth's greatest creation, not the Omnitrix, but what lies beneath it." Gwen gasped, her shields faltering momentarily. "He's talking about the codon stream, the source of all the DNA samples." Ben's mind raced. The codon stream was the massive repository of genetic information that the Omnitrix accessed to enable his transformations. If Vilgax could somehow extract that data, he could potentially create an army of aliens loyal only to him. "Not gonna happen, Squid Face," Ben declared, the Omnitrix symbol on his chest beginning to flash. Another transformation was coming, but which alien would be most effective against Vilgax? The warlord had faced most of Ben's forms before and had developed countermeasures for many of them. Vilgax smiled, a terrifying sight given his alien physiology. "I anticipated your resistance." He raised his gauntlet again, and the remaining drones suddenly changed their attack pattern, moving in perfect synchronization. "These are not merely Incursean drones, Tennyson. I've modified them with Galvan technology. They learn, adapt, and evolve with every second of combat." As if to demonstrate, the drones suddenly projected energy fields between them, creating a network that began to close in around the team. Kevin tried to punch through one of the fields, but was repelled with a painful shock that sent him flying backward. "Kevin!" Gwen cried out, rushing to his side while maintaining a protective barrier around them. Ben needed to think fast. Goop wasn't going to cut it against this level of technology. He needed something with more raw power, something that could disrupt the drone's network. The Omnitrix flashed again as Ben made his selection. "Let's see how your tech handles a little feedback. Feedback!" Another flash of green light, and where Goop had been, now stood a tall black alien with a single green eye and plug-like appendages covering his body. Feedback, a conductoid, had the ability to absorb and redirect energy, exactly what they needed. "Clever," Vilgax acknowledged, "but insufficient." He pressed a button on his gauntlet, and the drone's energy fields intensified, now emitting a frequency that seemed to interfere with Feedback's absorption abilities. Ben winced as his powers faltered. "Okay, new plan." He looked to Gwen and Kevin, who had recovered and was now standing protectively in front of her. "Guys, we need to disrupt that gauntlet. It's controlling the drones." Gwen nodded, her eyes glowing brighter. "I can try to create a mana disruption, but I'll need time to gather enough energy." "Time you do not have," Vilgax declared, suddenly charging forward with surprising speed for his size. His fist, enhanced by the gauntlet's power, connected with Feedback's chest, sending Ben flying through the wall of a nearby building. Kevin rushed Vilgax from the side, his metal fists reinforced with pieces of drone technology. "Remember me, ugly?" he taunted, landing a solid blow to Vilgax's side. But the warlord merely grunted, grabbing Kevin by the throat and hurling him into a parked car. Inside the partially collapsed building, Ben struggled to his feet, Feedback's form crackling with residual energy. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest was flashing yellow, a warning sign that the transformation was unstable due to the damage sustained. "Not now," Ben muttered, focusing on maintaining the form. He peered through the hole in the wall, watching as Gwen engaged Vilgax, her mana constructs taking the form of binding chains that temporarily restrain the alien warlord. But Vilgax's gauntlet pulsed and the chains shattered like glass. Ben needed a new approach. Direct confrontation wasn't working. Vilgax had clearly prepared for this encounter, studying their tactics and developing countermeasures. What he hadn't counted on was Ben's ability to think outside the box. The Omnitrix flashed again, this time reverting Ben to his human form as the damage threshold was reached. "Great, perfect timing as usual," he grumbled, ducking behind a fallen support beam as one of the drones scanned the building interior. Outside, Gwen was maintaining a defensive position, her shields barely holding against the combined assault of Vilgax and the remaining drones. Kevin had recovered and was trying to draw fire away from her, but he was outnumbered and outgunned. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, which was now in recharge mode, the hourglass symbol glowing red. Come on, he urged, knowing that his friends couldn't hold out much longer. Then he noticed something, the pattern of the drone movements, the way they coordinated their attacks. They weren't just being controlled by Vilgax's gauntlet, they were sharing a network, a hive mind of sorts. And if there was one thing Ben had learned over the years, it was that every network had vulnerabilities. The Omnitrix suddenly beeped, the hourglass symbol turning green again. Ben smiled. "Time for a little hacking. Let's see how you handle Upgrade." With another flash of green light, Ben transformed into Upgrade, a galvanic mechamorph with the ability to merge with and enhance technology. His black body, with green circuit-like patterns, flowed like liquid metal as he moved toward the nearest drone that had entered the building. Before the drone could react, Upgrade engulfed it, his form spreading over the machine like living metal. Inside, Ben could feel the drone's systems, its programming, and most importantly, its connection to the network. "Let's see what we've got here," Ben muttered as Upgrade's consciousness interfaced with the drone systems. It was sophisticated technology, a hybrid of Incursean and Galvan design, just as Vilgax had claimed. But there was something else, something hidden beneath the surface code, a back door. Outside, Vilgax had noticed the absence of one of his drones. "Find Tennyson!" he roared, directing the remaining drones to converge on the building. "He must not be allowed to—" Before he could finish, the drone that Ben had merged with burst through the wall, its systems now enhanced by Upgrade's abilities. But instead of attacking, it emitted a signal, a counter frequency that disrupted the network connecting the other drones. The effect was immediate. The drones faltered, their coordinated movements becoming erratic as their shared consciousness was scrambled. Some crashed into each other, while others simply fell from the sky, their systems temporarily offline. Vilgax's eyes widened in fury. "No!" He raised his gauntlet, attempting to reassert control, but Ben had anticipated this. Upgrade detached from the drone, flowing across the ground with incredible speed before latching onto Vilgax's gauntlet. The living technology of the galvanic mechamorph began to interface with and corrupt the gauntlet's systems. "Get off me, vermin!" Vilgax roared, trying to shake Ben off. But Upgrade's grip was tenacious, his form spreading further up Vilgax's arm. "What's wrong, Vilgax?" Ben taunted through Upgrade's synthesized voice. "Not a fan of upgrades. Let me show you what this baby can really do." With access to the gauntlet systems, Ben redirected its energy output, causing it to overload. Sparks flew as the device began to malfunction, the energy fields controlling the drones collapsing entirely. Gwen, seeing the opportunity, gathered her mana into a concentrated blast. "Kevin, now!" Kevin.